is going to speak about regulation. Regulation is basically code for societies, in a way, and it's written very badly. So we should write the regulation probably with this stuff. There you go.
So thank you, Luca. Good afternoon to everybody. I'm here to talk about problems. You know, lawyers love problems, and we try to solve them. I'm listening a lot of safety, legal challenges. You don't trust AI. You are worried about legal implications. What can happen if someone uses AI against you, or just go inside your computer to use AI? So I'm a kid of the 80s, so I'm old. I studied little smart computer technology at school, and I didn't use internet when I was young, nothing. I studied law at the university, and you know, in university, you don't talk about Web3 or decentralization. So I met one day a friend who started to talk to me about sustainability, technology, equity. He talked to me about Web3. You know, you can see Web3 in a lot of different manners, and you can use Web3 for different scopes. So after advising companies during a long time, I asked myself, what was Web3 and how the legal and regulatory system can fit with Web3? For me, as a lawyer, I needed to understand the main features of Web3. And you have the first one, and most important, decentralization. Distribution of power among network participants without government or central control. There is also tokenization. Lots of blockchains or Web3 projects use tokens. Tokens give the aspect of empowerment, ownership, difference. It can be decentralized, but also centralized. There is the most important for me of characteristic, that is cross-border. I see you are coming from different places and you all are using blockchain, right? Maybe for one thing or another thing. So how law can apply to all of you and how your projects can comply with regulations. So once identify the main challenges, sorry about that, I'm just using to don't lose myself. I ask myself, so let's see, legislation, applicable law. It's really easy in centralized systems. I go, I see where the corporation is located, and this is the law to apply. But Web3, where is it located? Can you answer this question? Can you help me? When you start to build a Web3 company, which applicable law do you think you are using? You don't know? I don't know. Because you can start your company in one place, but your users are over the world. And the information is spread cross-border, so everywhere. The main challenge is jurisdiction. How to enforce your legal agreements. Are your legal agreements on the blockchain agreements? What do you think? Are a smart contract legal? Do you think you can enforce a smart contract? Are you sure about that? No? Other opinions? No? So, I may say that once you choose the jurisdiction, that is the one that you are located and where you are operating, where your nodes are operating, you need to ask about smart contracts. Smart contracts are computer programs. These computer programs share information without the intervention of intermediaries. From a legal perspective, traditional legal perspective, they can be contracts, but they need to meet some requirements. The consent, modification, and applicable law. At the moment, there is just one law, the Data Act of the European Union of 2023, that regulates a form of smart contract, data sharing smart contract. But the regulation of these smart contracts in this regulation limits the use, and even, under my opinion, make them impossible. Why? Because they ask lots of essential requirements that a coded contract cannot have. For example, do you want to terminate a smart contract? Can you do it? No, because blockchain is immutable, right? So one of the conditions is that the smart contract can be terminated or interrupted. And another condition, it has the same legal characteristics and protection that a normal contract. So the good point is that the legislation is trying to regulate smart contracts, so they recognize that they exist. But the bad news is that it can be more limiting than helping. Another challenge is intellectual property. As you know, blockchain helps to content creators to register and manage exclusively their work and more efficiently because they don't need to go with intermediaries, and on the other side, they can manage it more efficient. What happened with intellectual property? Legislator wants to know who owns the digital assets. And again, blockchain keeps anonymity, and you may sometimes don't know who owns the digital assets. If you have questions, I don't want to do it really boring, so you can interrupt and just ask. After, to understand that intellectual property is one of legal challenges, you can also think about digital assets. Digital assets, you know, that can be a digital asset, NFT, for example, or a crypto asset. Do you think NFTs are regulated? Can you use NFT legally speaking? No. Any place in the world, an NFT has been regulated. Crypto assets, the European Union has regulated crypto assets, but has forgot NFTs, has forgot stable coins for payment, has forgot DAOs, so has forgot all the blockchain except tokens. Tokens that are stable coins, but not for payment purposes. Or utility tokens, yes.
Why do you think that is? Is there like an ulterior motive that they deliberately got and they'll focus on tokens only?
Yes, I think because they want to keep stable coins, use it for payment like e-money. In this way, when you keep it like that, like an e-money, you need to ask authorizations, you need to have a license, you need to have a deposit in a central authority that it's a bank.
So you're saying the ulterior motive is something like CDBC?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
You want to keep them like securities.
Yeah.
Why? Because it's the only way that you are able to tax them. You can use it through the ecosystem. You can use a token. You can create a token. As you may know, I'm part of the legal team of the Camino Network Foundation and Chain for Travel. We have developed our token because we have used it to get some financement. The first aim of our token was investment. But little by little, we were thinking about what was the possibilities with this token. Governance? Yes, why not? And also we think about payment. Why not to pay with the Camino token inside of our network? We asked for legal opinions. From a Swiss perspective, it's okay. It's a payment token and a utility token. From a EU perspective, it's just a utility token. So we need to be really careful how we use our token between the network. You have a question, Mark?
I do. Okay. I always like to look back in history and see if there's anything interesting that we can kind of relate to, right? So one thing that I thought was super interesting is, some of you guys probably used this before, but how many of you guys remember Pirate Bay? Pirate Bay? Pirate Bay, peer-to-peer, Napster? Anybody? Napster, right? So I'm interested, because that essentially is a peer-to-peer. There is digital millennium rights that develop from that kind of stuff, file sharing and so forth. So I'm wondering, is there anything interesting that you guys looked at from a regulatory standpoint that happened in that period, early 2000, 2004, these peer-to-peer networks getting taken down, like Popcorn, Napster, and so forth, and how that potentially could help or apply to where we are now?
Yes, definitely. So when the project started, I think it was one of the most serious projects that you can find now on the blockchain, because they were always concerned about what had happened before and also about the legislation and the regulatory ecosystem. Why? Because when you want to do a blockchain, you need to think about your jurisdictional implication of all the countries that are involved on your project. One of the mistakes of the previous projects were first to don't have maybe a clear idea and to don't follow the rules. So, if I want to sell my token to the US, I cannot do it because US state doesn't authorize me. If I want to give seriety and I want that the people trust on my project, I need to put in front compliance rules. And I need to say that I'm looking through everything, not only the legislation in Switzerland. I need to look for the mistakes of the other projects. I need to get the best part of the project that has failed. For example, do you remember Winding Tree?
Yeah, Winding Tree.
Yes. It was a great idea from the start. A marketplace on the blockchain. But they forgot everything from a legislative perspective and from a management perspective. Because you need to understand really well first the technology, what you want to do. So if you are starting a project on the Web3, first of all, you need to think what you want to do, with who you want to work. Because it's the most important. Web3 is not different than Web2 or Web1 from a legal perspective. You have laws and you need to apply them. You have compliance rules and you need to apply them. You have no laws and you need to improvise, trying to stick the most possible to the legislation, the existing legislation, right? Winding Tree was an amazing project to create a marketplace. Camino, it's working on that too. We are creating a messenger where you can communicate, where you maybe can use AI to speed up the process, to go ahead, but always sticking the most possible to the legislation.
So, you're saying before you start a project, you have to basically check the legislation in 200 jurisdictions or whatever the word is, no?
I think the most important is to understand, and after you need to get support.
All right. We are aware that if Bitcoin had done it, it would not be there. If Ethereum had done it, it would not be there. Uber, Airbnb. I mean, if we start from trying to respect the legislation, we don't have any kind of innovation. Is that some thought you share?
But you're going to fail.
What?
You're going to fail if you don't stick to legislation now.
Airbnb didn't fail, Uber didn't fail, Ethereum didn't fail.
Airbnb was getting money, was more close to the internet than we are close to the internet. Web3 wants to create a decentralized internet. Can someone explain what is a decentralized internet? I'm a venture and I want to explain you. Biot, can you give me money to make a project on a decentralized internet? Are you understanding my project from the first impact?
Not really.
Not really. Internet was existing.
But would you then have the argument of, because I completely see the point, right? Disruptors going to disrupt and they're not going to break it, move fast, very Silicon Valley, and this is where a lot of disruption and law regulation comes afterwards because they don't see this kind of disruption. So like, for example, the Pirate Bay, I remember in like 2004, they were served by like Sony for copyright infringement, and they said F you because we're in Sweden. So like, couldn't that be something similar where like we go to a crypto-friendly Singapore or whatever and say F you to the US and you just bill until like there's adoption, there's like, and then regulation catches up?
Yes and no. Because I think decentralization brings much more problems than internet bring it. In the way, when you are buying a room in Airbnb, you identify yourself and you use a credit card. These things were existing before. Airbnb was just offering a different form of selling a room. Web3 is completely changing the rules. Can you pay with a credit card on the Web3? No. Do you have things that...
But you can pay anonymously if you know how to do it.
But anonymous, to be anonymous is the problem for the legislator.
Right.
Yeah,
But is it
yeah.
illegal to be anonymous at the moment?
No.
So that's the gray area.
For that I say, you cannot pay with a credit card.
Right. But in crypto, if you want, you can be anonymous. So
You can be.
you can be
You can
if
be.
you know how to do it.
But can you do booking without giving your data?
Not on a centralized platform, no.
And in the centralized?
Can you do zero-knowledge proof? Isn't there a differentiation between what we call being anonymous and ultimately privacy? You know, if I have my details in a zero-knowledge proof sovereign identity, I can share my details to the hotel. They can do the booking.
They don't want, because it's forbidden by law. When you book a flight, you need to give your info. It's compulsory. You cannot do that. Yeah.
But isn't one of the core things ultimately of what we're trying to do with Web3 is give this sovereign ownership back to us as users? Look, I fully appreciate you have to comply and they will need my name, my passport number and everything, but we have a level of technology within Web3 where they can say, is this person's passport number and is everything okay? And you can abstract all that information away and the Web3 can say, you can trust that the data we have for this passenger is correct. So do they really need it in a future iteration of a booking system?
I'm quite agree with you. But for example, if you go to a hotel with an NFT, with all your data inside, they are not going to accept it. Even if it's just to have a scan to just scannerize your NFT, they say no. Yeah.
You have to have with you the identity card. But
Exactly.
it's not a problem of the NFT to identify the person. You can do the booking without providing your personal information.
No.
Yes, if you go to
No.
booking.com and you put my name is Mario and my surname is Rossi, it's not a problem.
You are already giving an information.
Yeah, but actually the moment to provide your identity recognition is at the check-in, not at the reservation.
No. When I'm using Booking, I have my profile.
You choose to have your profile, but if
I have a profile.
if
But
I-
even when you
if
book,
I-
you need
if-
to give.
If I book in the direct website of an hotel, they do not provide a sign-in process. It's just a matter to choose the dates and then to add in the format your name and surname.
You need to give your name and surname always when you book.
I can invent them.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but
it's fine, but you're giving them.
Sorry, guys, I think you are missing the point. You are saying I can say fake info. She's saying I can say no info.
Yeah.
That's a different, because of course you are obliged to give some info, and no one's check is if they are reliable unless you are in front of the guest making the check-in process. But we are talking about the possibility to make an anonymous booking. So I'm user 120 without any other info, and that's not possible to do. That's
No,
what
it's-
she's saying, right?
Not currently, because we're looking at the system in the now. Isn't the whole concept of innovation to be thinking, okay, this is what I believe our technology can do 5, 6, 7 years in the future, and I think at the core I want to retain sovereign identity to myself because I know how it's being exploited by existing big monopoly companies. That actually, if I can share my details and all the hotel needs to say is the data we have is trustable, is that not going to be
So I
something we
think-
should develop for?
I think it can be possible. But today, the status, so the first, when you are creating a project, Luca, you say, I need to, however, look at the legislation. First, because I need to choose the form of the company who's going to vehiculate this project. It can be a foundation, it can be an association. I cannot say to you, yes, guys, you can create a DAO, it's going to work. No. DAO cannot work. They are not legally recognized.
Bitcoin is a DAO and Ethereum is a DAO.
If you have a problem with Bitcoin, they have, so Ethereum, it's a foundation. If you have a legal...
Sorry, it's a foundation, but the protocol is not a foundation. The protocol is there. The foundation dies tomorrow, Ethereum is still
The
there.
foundation is the legal person then.
Yeah, if they
can
kill
get
the foundation,
against.
if the foundation is killed by the regulators, Ethereum is still there. So Ethereum itself is a DAO, right?
You are right, but there is not legal entity. So if you have
Who
a
cares?
problem... Yes, I care. Because
Why?
if I have a problem on the network, I will not be able to ask for example, there is a breach of my smart contract. I do a smart contract with some conditions. I don't know. I pay you X and you give me that. I pay you X, but you don't give me that. You don't give me W.
Right.
To who I'm gonna ask liability?
If you interacted with an anonymous protocol, which has no foundation or nobody, you took the responsibility for this. You can still look for the hackers, right?
I know, but I quite agree with you. We cannot go back. Someone needs to have responsibilities. I really believe, I'm a lawyer, so I want responsibilities, payment, indemnities. Right. So the most important for me, when a client comes, when Camino comes and asks me, Cristina, how can we create this project? I cannot say, yes, do a DAO, it's fine. I cannot say that because people, it's not gonna use your product. Why? If I don't have the possibility to claim my rights, because people want rights, I'm not gonna buy you a travel there. If I have problems, I don't want to just, you lose your money, I'm sorry. Do you like it?
It depends on the project, right? I mean...
I don't think, I think liabilities exist and it's something that it's nice nowadays to be able to claim something that is yours.
Can I ask a question through an example? So if we look at the real world, we have electronic payments and we have cash. Cash is anonymous and fungible, and we can use it, depending on the regulation, up to a certain limit. Of course, you cannot have 1 million in cash, but you can have a few thousand, whatever. Depends on the country. So, as you said, the regulator will come, I want to identify you, I want to know where the money comes from, and that is totally fine for big amounts, right? So the question is, on the regulator side, will there be any tolerance up to a certain level to have anonymous payment through USDT, Tether, like it happens all the time? If you know how to buy Tether anonymously, you can send it anonymously, right? It's not difficult. I give you cash, you give me Tether, and then I send anonymously whoever you want. So at the moment it's tolerated. We know Tether can freeze USDT if the government asks. So basically it looks like they're doing checks after the transaction. If they don't like the transaction, they freeze the funds. So do you think this is going to be the model? So we tolerate some anonymity, like we do with cash, or the model is going to be CBCD or whatever, the government, stablecoin, all the way?
So we are in the real world. Cash can be your salary.
Yeah.
It goes to the bank. The bank knows how much money.
Cash can be paper money, and if you find someone accepting it, you can do a transaction.
If you receive paper money like that, can be suspicious.
Right, but it is possible, right? So, I mean, in Italy, you are sitting on piles of cash.
No, but
right?
It's not nice. So I would say authorities are fighting against cash.
But there is, up to a certain limit, is legal.
No. You need to declare all the money that you have.
Right, but you can do a payment up to 1,000 euros in cash.
Yeah, obviously.
Right. That is tolerated.
This is tolerated, but the state knows very well where this money comes from. And they can tax this money. And they can control this money. There is no way that the state doesn't know except if you just sell your body and you get some black you can use it without the state knowing. Yeah. But it's really difficult that the state wants the control, guys. Why? But it's just for taxes. It's financial purposes. They want to protect banks. They want to protect the financial system in its totality. So I'm not saying, I think it's the opposite. The message is, I'm not saying that Web3 it's impossible. It's the opposite. I think it's possible, but we need to moderate our approach to the Web3. To be anonymous, it's nice because you have a really nice conception of Web3. But in the real world, maybe it can be dangerous to be fully anonymous. I have kids. Someone can get him or her. I have two. They can go to a hotel without saying who they are, without saying where the money comes from, buying a ticket flight without saying where they are going. You know what I mean? Identification. 5 minutes more.
Maybe this could be the Agora discussion because it's really interesting. So it's one of the potential for later.
Okay, cannot you be? Can you be anonymous into the environment of Web3, but then when you jump out to use a ticket or whatever, then you have to identify yourself?
Yes, it can be possible, but if you are identification yourself out, you are identification yourself in.
I think that's the future. Actually, it's the opposite. We're all going to be anonymous, and we'll only identify ourselves when we need to. Anyways, so real quick, sorry. So I think it's going to be super important for us to divide our focus in terms of the Web3 problem, in terms of regulation, and then also innovation in travel as well, because in order for you to innovate and travel with Web3 tech, you do need to look at the regulatory landscape, because there is going to be something that you may want to disrupt that you need to see if it's feasible and viable. Also from a venture capital perspective, because you want to de-risk yourself from that, right? Sorry, I just have one real quick question because I read, I don't know too much about it, but didn't the EU introduce a few months ago the digital identity wallet?
Yes.
And how does that impact where we are now?
So the digital passport wallet, it's really interesting because we start to make electronic means to don't use a passport. But EU is including that now, but for example, Ukraine is using it from 5 years already. You have your car permit, your passport, your identity, everything, it's electronic. And you have an NFT, obviously, that recognizes you where you go. But it's not Web3. You keep being in a centralized system, okay? But the message, most important message is that the legal side can help you to develop Web3. But there is things on the Web3 that needs to be modulated. Now, maybe tomorrow you can be completely anonymous. In 10 years, my kids maybe doesn't need to declare who they are and where they are going, you know. But today, when you are developing your project, you need to consider these issues. And you need, for example, from a data protection perspective, can you store data on the blockchain? No, it's completely forbidden. Why? Because the immutability, you need to have the possibility to rectify and to delete your data. So in travel, on Chain for Travel, we were really concerned, and so we store the data outside, and we store on the blockchain what is possible. Yeah, but also you were talking about digital passport. It's really important. I cannot sell tokens to Qatar because it's completely forbidden, you know. So some informations need to be provided from a legal perspective. And the most important is when you build your project is to consider them. Even if you will, on the future, I truly believe on Web3 and the projects that are being developed, but I also believe to stick in the Web 2.5 for the moment and to work together with the European Union and the authorities. I don't know if you know, but we are in contact and we are working with the German authorities. We are giving them information, we are providing them how we work, what we want to do, because we are a really serious project and we really care. We want to be the future of the Web3 travel. So to be the future, we need to show that we are serious and that we comply with compliance, regulations, PMSs. If I buy a travel on the blockchain, I need a PMS that it's linked to blockchain. I don't see hotels saying, oh, let's see. Oh yes, today, 1, 2, 3, easy. They are gonna not buy it. They don't want that. because they are used to have a PMS, easy things, you know what I mean? So legal things are really important, and to be anonymous, to own your data is really complicated, but it will come working all together.